John Henry, our club founder, will be giving an educational speech. One of the many things that John loves about this club is its willingness to innovate and try new things that other clubs may or may not be doing. One of the surprising things that he and others in this club have noticed is that the Toastmaster program does very little to address the absolute necessity of being heard and understood by our audience. If people can't hear and decipher the words we are saying, our best efforts at public speaking are in vain. We must learn to project and pronunciate. In this 8 to 10 minute speech entitled Loud and Clear, John will be introducing a new role to our club that will help us to be heard loud and clear. Let's welcome John.
Loud and clear. How many have heard that phrase in your lifetime? Pretty much everybody. This morning I want to talk about its origin, its relevancy, and the new role that's going to accompany it, and finally a few recommendations on how we can speak loudly and clearly in this room especially. First of all, let's talk about its relevancy. About 100 years ago, believe it or not, that's a long time ago, the radio telegraph communication industry had to assess their signal, the analog signal they were sending through the airwaves, and to be able to make adjustments. And so to do that, they asked two questions. The first question was, what is the strength of my signals? And the second question was, how are you receiving me? And depending on how the person listening on the other end responded to that, they could make adjustments and make improvements. This standard and these questions was adopted not only by amateur two-way radio enthusiasts, but also the military and everybody that's using radio frequencies. And it still affects us to this day. When a radio operator was asked that question, they used this table to answer the question. And each of those questions could receive a score 1 through 5. And so a perfect score would be a 5 by 5. And they would sometimes answer on the radio, what's the strength of my signals? How are you receiving me? Sometimes they'd say 5 by 5 or even 5s. Or the equivalent of that is loud and clear. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes they would receive a poor reception. What if they received an answer of 3 by 2? That would mean your volume is fairly good and I can understand you now and then. And obviously they need to adjust. And something needs to change to improve that signal. This still affects us to this day. Pull out your cell phones. Go ahead, pull out your cell phone. So pretty much everybody up in the top part of your screen, there's going to be a 5-bar signal reception. That is from this standard. Have you ever received a phone call where the bars might be fairly good, but you're receiving them a garbled message? That might be a 4 by 1 on your cell phone. I'm receiving you 4 by 1. Hang up and call me back. And usually that fixes the problem. Reestablish the connection. Signal is strong and you're receiving them clearly. Still affects us to this day. So how does that relate to us here in Toastmasters? As many of you know, this keeps coming up in the last couple months, that people in the audience can't always hear the speaker. And it just amazes me that Toastmaster does very little to address that. There's a little bit about it in vocal variety, using your voice. I think that's about it. There's no ongoing effort to adjust and improve our projection and our clarity. It's pretty amazing that it's void. So I got to thinking about this. Well, what can we do about it here in our club? Maybe we should create a role called Loud and Clear. And that person, which is McKenna today, will sit in the back of the audience. That person will sit in the back of the audience. And anytime any speaker, whether it's the president, the Toastmaster, a speaker, an evaluator, a table topics speaker, a table topics master, the grammarian, anybody, they can flash those cards up on the fly. So you know, oh, I'm one by one? You can adjust at that point. Oh, I'm not speaking loud enough. I need to increase my volume, or I'm speaking too fast, and I need to slow down so people can understand, whatever that might be. In addition to that, I thought it would be appropriate for the general evaluator to also call on this role during the evaluation process, so they can give a very abbreviated report. There's no fluff, there's no need to comment, it's just Jeff, 5 by 5, Sue, 3 by 1, and 2 by 4, whatever it might be. That's all. Just a real quick, 30 seconds or less. Everybody that spoke, they can give you a score. So, and that's a generalization. So they may have improved. McKenna may have flashed a 2 by 3 up while they were speaking, and they adjusted. And overall, that person's score may have been a 4 by 4. And so she would report that. Does that make sense? That's, you know, just because she flashes one score doesn't mean the report score is going to be the same if you happen to adjust and improve. I think this is vital because if we can't be heard by the person in the back of the audience, we're in trouble. And so we need an ongoing effort to be able to improve and make improvements. That's all fine and dandy, but what if I can't project very well? What if I have trouble being understood? What do I do about it? So I just have 5 really quick suggestions, and I'm not the end all on this subject. These are just some examples that we can do today. I will also post some suggestions on our website, pctoastmasters.com, that you can get some more tips and tools to improving volume and clarity. But here's 5 quick ones. The first one is a tough one. Relax. If you're new to public speaking and it really freaks you out, the first thing that happens is you get tense and nervous and your throat gets really tight. And that means you're going to speak from your throat and not from your diaphragm. So one of the best things you can do, it's 7 in the morning, is yawn. Yawning loosens up your throat and relaxes your throat muscles. So if you're going to speak and you're really nervous, you can feel you're tight and dry, make yourself yawn before you come up. That's going to loosen that up. Second thing is you have to breathe. If you're breathing really short breaths, your volume is going to be really shallow. You ever heard a singer? I've heard a singer recently that they were breathing really constantly in their song, and it was annoying. And they just weren't. They didn't have that breath support. You need to think like an opera singer. You sing like my wife doesn't really like Amy Grant. You've probably heard Amy Grant. She's got a real breathy voice. It just doesn't sound good. It's not that really clear melodic sound. But an opera singer, you know, it's versus ah versus ah. Big difference. It's coming from here or coming from here. So big breaths, and let your voice be supported with a lot of air from your diaphragm and not try to push it and strain your throat. Articulation is related to breath support. If we don't breathe deeply, that means we're not going to have that support, and we're not going to enunciate and use what they call the mask of your face to resonate your consonants and your vowels, and everything just becomes clear. I have this property manager I work with, and it's the hardest thing to understand this guy. So he talks like this. If it's around, come down the aisle, I'm going to see a little bit. What? What did you just say again? Everybody's trying to come down here, see what you're doing, but this guy cannot slow down. Just spread the words out a little bit, and I'll understand what you're saying. And sometimes we can fall into that. We can get nervous, we talk fast, or maybe that's just how you talk. You talk really fast. You may need to slow down so we can hear the pronunciation of each word, and it's clear for us. Lastly, it's simply opening our mouths and talking like this. It's really hard to understand. But if you open your mouth wide, you can. So here's a little bit of a exercise and phrase that we can do. Repeat after me. The lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue. The lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue. Now open that mouth really wide. Take a deep breath. The lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue. Fellow Toastmasters, we have to learn how to project and pronunciate so that we can be heard loud and clear. Mr. Tyson.